Good stuff. So let's rock and roll. So anybody who doesn't know me, my name's Tim Bratz. I'm a real estate investor. I got started in real estate when the market was going crazy back in 03 to 07. I was in college at that time. And when the market was going gangbusters, dude, if you had a breath, you could make money in real estate. And me being whatever, 20-year-old kid at the time, I was pretty money motivated. I wanted to make money. And so I decided to get involved in real estate. So I was living in Cleveland, Ohio, which is where I'm originally from, and moved out to New York City. My brother works for the government and was living out there at the time, and lived with my brother. And I thought that you get started in real estate by getting your real estate license. And so I got my real estate license and I found a real estate agency, but I knew I didn't want to do, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I interviewed with a couple of different companies, and I liked the idea of doing the investment side of things. And I ended up going and parking my license with a small boutique firm in Manhattan, and brokered essentially retail leases, office leases, did some investment sales. I didn't really participate in that because you had to be a little bit more seasoned. So they gave me like these scrap listings on side streets in Manhattan and these little dumpy spots. And I remember the first deal that I closed, the first deal that I transacted and brokered, it was 400 square feet in Manhattan, or right at Bleecker and Thompson, if there's any New Yorkers on the line, right at Bleecker and Thompson, and it was 400 square feet. We signed a lease with a tenant for $10,000 a month with a 4% annual increase and a 12-year lease term. And I remember sitting back and thinking, holy smokes, this landlord's gonna make almost $2 million over the next 12 years for doing something at one point in time. And that didn't include the other 7 retail spaces. That did not include any of the 15 stories of apartments above it. And I realized pretty quickly I was on the wrong side of the coin. I need to be owning real estate instead of brokering real estate. And unfortunately, New York real estate, even though it was like 2008 and it was like cresting downward and everybody's scared, properties were still way outside of my ability to purchase in New York City. So I wanted some quality of life. I heard good things about Charleston, South Carolina, ended up moving down to Charleston, and ended up finding and learning all about real estate and buying all the courses and going to all these seminars and just studying like crazy on YouTube and all these different things, and ended up buying my first house in 2009. I think it was April of 2009, and bought it on my credit card. Didn't have any access to money. The market had crumbled. This house was $25,000. That's awesome. My only problem was I didn't have $25,000. I had a few grand saved up from doing deals up in New York, but really I just had a credit card with about $3,000 limit. And this is the time where, again, everybody's running away from real estate, saying, don't invest in real estate. And I had just showed up to the party. I'm like, where's everybody going? And so I figured if nobody's going to give me money, let me try to figure out how I can come up with money on my own. And so I called up my credit card company. I said, hey, I need you guys to increase my limit. And they're like, well, it was, I think, $1,000 or $3,000 at the time. And they're like, how much do you need? And I probably put my finger up to my lip like this, and I said, I need $100,000. And the lady on the other line just laughed at me, said, hey, you've been an amazing customer for the past 15 months, but we just can't give you $100,000. So I said, well, what can you give me? She said, 15 grand. I said, all right, give me 15 grand. So they gave me some balance transfer checks. I went and made an offer on the property, went back and forth, and ended up at $14,000, which is the most I could pay. And they ended up accepting it. And this place was a pig. It was nasty and gross. And I did all of the work physically to it and changed out the carpet and the fixtures and really just put a bunch of lipstick on the pig, and then held an open house. And one of the neighbors came by and offered me $14,000 more than what I was into it for. And so, I'm a punk 23-year-old kid at the time. Don't know what I'm doing. First deal I've ever done. The worst housing recession this country's ever seen, and making money. So got addicted, got into wholesaling, got into the retail flips, stuff you see on HGTV, got into turnkey flips, and I started buying rental properties, fixing them all up, packaging it with management, and then selling it off. And then the management company crumbled, so then I had to open up my own management company, built it up to be one of the largest residential management companies in Cleveland now. But it was tough business. So we actually sold that off a year ago. Got excited about some vacation rentals a couple years ago, and that's been a break even for me. So we don't bought 2 of them, stopped buying those. Office buildings, actually do a little bit of office. I have about 60 or 80 units or something of office, and those do pretty well. Land development, just got into self-storage last year, but it's not me operating it or my team operating it. We partnered up with awesome operators, and they're handling all the operational side. So, and then we do a lot of private lending and stuff too. So my focus, though, for anybody who knows me, is apartments and commercial real estate. So I don't do any of those other things really anymore, other than raising money and bringing money and mentoring and coaching and operating apartment buildings. We do some ground up development, and a lot of the stuff that we do is just buying existing buildings that are distressed, that are need some work, and we turn them around, clean them all up, and fix them. So I'll go over my model with you guys in a second, but I'm currently at 3,736 units as of today. Just closed on a 264 unit building today. So bumps me up to 3,700 units. I got another 477 closing in mid-March. So that's cool. So it'll put me over 4,000 units in the next 45 days. So that's pretty exciting. Portfolio value is around $300 million as of today with this new deal. And we owe a total of about 180 million on it to debt and equity investors, and that's our cost basis. So we got a lot of equity. It's not all my equity, but a good chunk of it is. So that's cool. Side note, if anybody's not connected with me on Facebook, make sure we're connected. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I put out a ton of free content on all those different mediums. So if you guys want to learn more about the stuff on an ongoing basis, I can only give you so much information in an hour, but we really dive deep on all those different mediums. So make sure we're connected. Hit me up. Send me a friend request. So let's talk about the benefits of commercial real estate. One of the main reasons I love commercial real estate is the scalability. I remember sitting back a few years ago, well, actually, when I first bought my first apartment building, it was an 8-unit building. And it was all the same. I was flipping houses, high-end houses, low-end houses, single-family houses, and then single-family rentals. And then I got this 8-unit building in Cleveland, West 130th Street. I bought it and renovated it. It was all in for $10,000 a unit. This is 2012. And so like you could do that back then because the market was in such bad shape, but it was really hard to find money. But I bought this apartment building and I fixed it all up and I renovated it. And my goal was to sell it so that way I can roll it into something bigger and make some profit, keep on. It wasn't really like the holding of the legacy wealth, which is really my thing now. And I remember when I bought that apartment building, I was flipping houses at the same time, and the houses that I was flipping was cool, but the apartment building was better because, one, if it didn't sell, I didn't care because it had rental income. My return on investment was insane. And then secondly, it was more scalable. Instead of flipping single-family houses, single-family rentals, I could go and buy an 8-unit or a 14-unit apartment building. And instead of looking at 8 houses, I can go and look at 1 apartment building. Instead of negotiating with 8 sellers, I can negotiate with 1 seller. Instead of negotiating with or getting 8 private money lenders or private money loans, I can go and get 1 private money loan. You're dealing with 1 closing versus 8 closings. And so there's just more scalability in doing commercial deals than it is doing in residential or single family type deals. As counterintuitive as it might sound, it's actually easier to do bigger deals because you're dealing with just more A players. My commercial mortgage broker is an absolute stud and knows this stuff inside and out. And I know that things on the loan side are gonna be taken care of. I can attract 8 players onto my team. My COO, my chief investment officer, my acquisitions director are all A players because, and I don't have to pay them a lot of money because they give a little piece of the equity in these deals for every deal that we do. So it's a way that you can attract A players to your team without having to stroke a multiple 6-figure check on that because there's so much juice in the squeeze on these things. And that's number 2, bigger deals equals more money. So again, you have all these big deals. You're not talking about, it's hard to bring on A players in a single family deal because you're talking about, I don't know, with $20,000, $30,000 of profit on an average single family flip, let's say. If you had 4 A players involved, it's not too exciting. But on this deal that we just closed on today, we're all into 264 units. Man, I gotta look at the numbers on it, but we're all into it for somewhere around, I think we're all in for $35,000 a unit. and these things will appraise for close to 65,000 a unit. Pretty like maybe even more, maybe 70,000 a unit. So because there's millions of dollars of equity built into these larger commercial deals, there's enough juice in the squeeze to carve it up amongst a bunch of A players. So now, again, and the other thing is I don't have to do 100% of the work myself. I remember when I was a solopreneur banging my head against the wall, trying to figure out, how do people grow these businesses? And the way that you do it, you just get into bigger deals, because then you can attract better levels of talent and A players, and you just carve it up. I don't need 100% of a deal. I need 25% of a watermelon versus 100% of a grape. There's a lot more juice in the squeeze of a quarter of a watermelon than there is in 100% of a grape. And I can focus on what I like to do, right? Because I'm good at it. I like to do it. I'm happier in life versus having to do all these other aspects and balance the books and do the operations and do the leasing and do project management and do money raising and do, it's a lot of work. And some of those things aren't my natural unique ability. My natural unique ability is raising money and the marketing aspects of things. And so I like to focus on that. I could do more deals because I'm good at that. I get more refined at that skill set. At the same time, the people I'm partnered up with on the operations side and the joint venture and the project management and the property management sides, they can focus on what they're good at. And when you do that, 1 + 1 = 3. You can actually accomplish more because you're doing the stuff that you're really, really good at, and it's more enjoyable. Number 3, passive and residual income. I think this is probably why a lot of us got into real estate, right? This allure of passive income, this allure of residual income, of doing something one time and then getting paid on it over and over and over again. And, but including myself, a lot of us get stuck in this trap of transactionally flipping houses, of transactionally wholesaling houses, and essentially trading our time for money. We got to go to work and flip a house in order to get paid again, right? You got to do it again and again and again. And that's not true lifestyle. That's not why we got involved in real estate. But we all think we got to do that in order to stockpile a bunch of cash in order to roll it into these passive assets. It's not the case. I'm going to show you guys how I structured it with my private money lenders, which is a grand slam deal for them, and help build a ton of wealth for me. And I'll show you, again, this case study on 134 unit in a couple minutes here. But it's truly residual income. Like I have 3,700 units. My phone's got this thing running, but I have 3,700 units, and I don't have my calculator that I can pull it out, but it's a little over, I don't know, average rent's $300 or $800 a month, let's say. So you're talking about $3 million a month of rental income, right? That did I say 3 million? $3 million a month in rental income. $3 million a month pays for all the operating expenses for all the properties. Then it pays for all the debt service. Then it pays my investors. And then there's still cash flow left over. Here's the exciting part. It's right now, it's the beginning of February. We collect $3 million of rent. I can spend all that money. You know what happens 30 days from now, the first week in March? They fill up my bank account again. And I can spend all that money. You know what happens the first week in April? They fill up my bank account again. That is residual income. And that's what you can get by buying apartments and buying commercial real estate. Tax-free money from loan proceeds. I'm going to show you guys some of the tax advantages and this stuff in a minute. And understanding that there's a ton of tax advantages in real estate altogether. The tax-free money from loan proceeds, depreciation, long-term capital gains, and 1031 exchanges. It's ways to kick the tax can down the road a little bit, or even reclassify it and reduce your tax liability. I think what a lot of people don't realize is, like, since the beginning of civilization, since the beginning of time, beginning of when there were social classes and all these things, landlords and landowners controlled all the wealth. Like, since the beginning of time, all the wealth has come from land ownership. And so if they're the ones who have all the wealth, they have a lot of influence. They're probably the ones that write the laws, including the tax laws, and offer greater tax advantages to landlords and landowners than any other business or any other job out there. So we can talk about a lot of that stuff. It's just not time to get into it now. And then the sixth one is building legacy wealth. And this is what I'm truly all about, is buying assets, providing enough value for other people where they're now willing to pay for your asset, and they're paying you enough where it covers your operating expenses to that asset, covers your debt service of that asset, and it puts cash in your pocket. And over time, the equity and the appreciation of the property grows. Over time, every month you make a mortgage payment, that goes down. And then you have this gap 10, 15, 20 years down the road, maybe even own the property free and clear. And that's worth millions and millions of dollars. And that is how real wealth is built. That's how it's been built for generations, millennia. So we'll talk about it. My buying formula comes from the residential world. And I remember when I was flipping houses, I'd have to be all into a house, purchase price, renovation cost, holding costs for 65% of the after repair value. I never read a book on apartments. I never went to a course on apartments. I banged my head against the wall for about 7 years in doing real estate before I really got good at it about 3-4 years ago. And so I lost a lot of time. I lost a lot of money because I didn't do those things. But at the same time, I created a very unique formula for buying apartments. And it essentially stems from my single family days. If it makes sense to buy single family, 65 cents on the dollar, why not buy apartments for 65 cents on the dollar? So my formula is I got to be all in to an apartment building for 65% or less of that stabilized value. And that goes back to the numbers I told you guys about before. I actually average around 60% of stabilized value because I own a little over $300 million of property and only owe about $180 million on it. So that's how you can build up a lot of equity very quickly. So let's talk about the value add process apartment investing process. Number one thing you got to do is go find a deal. I go and look for deals that will produce a 10% cap rate or a 10% return on my investment once it's stabilized. What does stabilized mean? It means it's fully renovated. It's all rented out at market rate rents and good management's in place, and it's over 90% occupied. That's stabilized. In the bank's eyes, that's stabilized in my eyes. So once that happens, we can typically do that in about a 12 to 18 month time frame. It needs a yield, the net income needs a yield, a 10% return on investment or a 10% cap rate at my cost basis. So if I'm all into a deal for $6 million, it needs to yield $600,000 of net income at the end of the day, at the end of the year. Step number 2, acquisition financing. Make sure that you have access to financing and access to, this typically comes from bank loans, local banks for me, and debt funds. Again, my commercial mortgage broker is a rock star in that capacity. I can connect you guys with him if you guys need access. Raising private money. I'm going to talk about how I structure raising private money, but I use the private money for the down payment and the operating capital. So the acquisition financing is 80% typically of my total cost. So if I'm into a property for $10 million, $8 million of that's going to come from the actual bank or the investment fund that invests 80% of the money. The other 20% of the money is going to come from private capital, meaning private money, the same places that you're raising private money from on the residential end are the same people that I raise money from for my apartment buildings. And again, I'll show you how I structure that. Implement the value add process. So once we close the property, dude, what's going on? All right, hey, so the closing that's going on, I have to sign the settlement statement right now. Apparently, I almost yelled out like, "Mom, stop! Mom, you're embarrassing me." 2 things. I'm in my office, guys. I'm not at home. My mom doesn't live with me anymore. There's one.
So folks, while he's doing that, I just want to reiterate that this is live. We're live right now. It's 12:26 p.m. and Tim just got handed some papers to sign. So we are doing this live right now.
And make sure to put all your questions.
That was not planned in any capacity, I promise you. But about 264 units in Illinois, Springfield, Illinois. So pretty pumped on that. Partnering up with my boy Matt Larson, Chad Kavanaugh. Obviously, my team's involved. And who else am I missing on that? And then we have third party. No, they are third. Larson's handling that. So good little deal. And we're gonna pick up another couple hundred units across the street. Just contracted those as well. So we'll have about 400 units in that total area. All right, cool. So we found a deal. We got the financing lined up from the bank. We raised the other down payment money from are private investors. And by the way, it is assumed in commercial real estate that you're going to raise money from outside investors. The bank allows it and assumes you're going to do it. So it's not like residential where they want all the money to come from you personally. No, the financing is dictated based on the property, not on the borrower. Now there's a little bit on the borrower, but it's 90% on the property, 10% borrower based versus flip side of that in the residential, right? And then again, they assume that you're going to syndicate or raise private money for the equity for the down payment on the deal. So it's just easier. You don't have to BS or lie or give them the runaround on any of this stuff like we had to do in the single family realm, right? This is just so much cleaner and easier, and it's just a better process. So now we close on the building. So just closed on it, right? Got all the money in, wiring all the funds today, and we close on it. Now we're going to implement the value add plan. So this is when we renovate the entire buildings. We raise all the rents, we add amenities, we increase the income, and we decrease the expenses on these properties. Why? Because it's 100% based on the income approach. So it's all about how much is net operating income can you increase the NOI by, and that's how the value add is increased. So step number 5, stabilize it. So over this entire value add process, stabilization, usually we average 15 to 18 months on any given deal. And then once it's stabilized, then we can refinance it. And I'm not about going out and selling apartment buildings. There's a lot of people who teach you to syndicate, raise money, and then let it operate for 5 years and hope it appreciates over time, and then you sell it because that's the only way to get your investors their money back. I don't like, but they're buying stabilized stuff, so they're buying at a retail price, so they have to do that. Me, I buy at a wholesale price, I create appreciation, and then I'm all into a building for, let's say it's worth $10 million. If I'm all in for 65 cents on the dollar, that's 6.5 million. I'll go out and get a loan for 70% LTV, loan to value, once it's stabilized. And then with that 70% LTV loan, that's $7 million, that allows me to pay back my investors, allows me to pay off the acquisition financing, and then I can hang on to this, and then there's some refi proceeds, and then I can hang on to the property long term.
Hey,
and
Tim,
then let the tenants pay down the, yep.
Sorry to bother you, but it sounds like your mic just went out. I can still hear you, but it sounds really tinny and thin. I don't know if you would have to disconnect it and reconnect it again.
How about now? Any better?
Still the same.
Okay. Oh, hang on a second, guys. See, this is. How do I get out of this stuff? Hang on a second, guys. Stopping the share for 1 minute. Let me see what. Microphone.
How's this?
Oh, that's great right there. That sounds perfect.
My radio voice. Oh. All right, back to the screen share. I apologize for that, guys and gals. Share. Okay. So then I can hold it long term, right? So I own the building. All the chips are off the table. My investors are fully paid back, let's say in 18 months. And then we have long-term loan in place that the tenants are paying rent every single month. We're paying down the principal balance on that loan. Every month we make a mortgage payment. The property naturally appreciates over time. And again, it's only house money in play. So it allows us to hold these things long-term. And we usually put, I'm going to talk about risk mitigation, the types of loans and stuff that I get at the end. So I'm not going to burn too much time on that right now. Cool. So let's go into a case study. Actually, I'm going to turn around the Facebook thing. Let's see if you guys can see this. Oh, yeah. Looks good. All right. Village South Apartments. This is a 134 unit apartment building that I own down in Georgia. And this says current financials. This should say acquisition financials. So these were the numbers when I bought the building. Rents were really low. Vacancy was really high. It was 40% vacant. The gross income that it brought in was about a little over $450,000. expenses, taxes, insurance, utilities, maintenance, management. I've simplified this to like a third grade level for you guys, and made it very simple to see what the net operating income is, which was, it was around $196,000, just shy of 200 grand. After what we did is we stabilized it, right? We renovated it. And by renovating it, we were able to go through and increase the rental income. How were we able to increase it that much? Because we renovated the units. They were more attractive units. And we added some amenities, laundry facilities, storage facility, all sorts of stuff, where now it generated a lot more income. And because it was fully renovated and we had these nice new kitchens in and these nice new bathrooms, this nice flooring and updated amenities and all these things, it attracted better tenants. It attracted more qualified tenants, and we could bump up rents. And there's less turnover. So our vacancy dropped to 5%. So the gross income increased by over almost $600,000, $550,000. Our expenses, though, did not increase in proportion. They went up a little bit, but not nearly as much. So take a look at the expenses. Taxes, very, very predictable. We know exactly what the assessment's going to be, and we bought it a little bit more than what it was assessed at before, so it went up just a little bit. Insurance dropped by $4,000 a year. That's amazing. It might not seem amazing because it's only $4,000. You talk about a multi-million-dollar deal, but $4,000. Let me explain what this does. $4,000 in annual savings, valued at a 7% cap rate, increases the value of this building by over $50,000 at the time of the refinance. So $4,000 a year savings increases the value by over $50,000 based on the cap rate multiple that the property is valuated at. So every incremental little change on this significantly increases the value. So utilities dropped by over $20,000 on this. $20,000 increases the value of this building by over $250,000, right? So you can see how all this stuff adds up. And utility. So let's talk about it. Taxes, that's going to be pretty set. Insurance, all I did was picked up the phone, made some phone calls, and saved $4,000, increased the value of the building by 50 G's. Utilities dropped it by $24,000 per year. It actually increased it by about $300,000. The value of the building. How? Because we did low flow toilets, low flow shower heads, low flow faucets, as well as LED light fixtures and all these things. It reduced our utility bill significantly by about 25% across the board. Maintenance. Now maintenance went up and we renovated the whole building. How did maintenance go up? It's because we have a reserve in there where, first of all, the owner was doing a bunch of the work before, and I don't want a job, I want a business, right? So one, I'm going to hire somebody. But secondly, there's a maintenance reserve that we fund every year. I think it's about $250 per unit per year. And on 134 units, that's an added, whatever it does, $30,000, $35,000 a year that's just set aside. That's not really expenses, but eventually the roof's going to go and all these things. But that'll all happen 20 years down the road. So we'll fund that reserve, and the bank's going to require that reserve in here. So there's actually more juice in this than we are showing. And then the management. We got real management in place. We're not personally managing it. Again, we want a business, not a job. So it increased our net operating income to $627,000. That's exciting. Let's see what it does from a number standpoint. My Facebook feed, my phone died. So sorry, Facebook friends. Should have registered for the webinar. All right. So the acquisition, all in for $3,720,000. That is the purchase price of $1.8 million plus a renovation budget of $1.9 million. So we actually put more money into these things than we bought them for. They needed a lot of work. Financing. We got financing in place. The bank gave us $3.36 million, and I went and raised another $600,000. Now look, I raised a little bit more than what we actually needed for cost. Why would I do that? I raised an extra $240,000. Have you guys ever done a renovation before? You ever had a renovation that went over budget or over timeline? It happens. So, and the property was performing kind of, but when you're going through this value add phase, sometimes the tenants fall off. Sometimes occupancy drops and it dips a little bit before it comes back up. And it's just the reality where sometimes you need some operating capital and you got to front some of the construction costs as well before the bank reimburses you. So that's why we overborrowed a little bit on these. After 24 months, we refinanced this in just shy of 24 months. Here's what the stabilized numbers look like. The NOI jumped to 627, like you saw on the previous page. At a 7% cap rate, it appraised at $8,957,000. We're all in for 3.96, right? So we went and got an agency loan, which is like a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, CMBS, life insurance companies, at a 70% LTV loan. So our loan amount was $6,195,000. Our interest rate on this one was 4.45% interest rate. One of my deals that I'm closing on next month, we just locked in a rate for 15 years at 3.9% interest rate. It's like free money. Every month we make a mortgage payment. We take money from our right pocket and essentially put it into our left pocket. It's unbelievable, the financing terms right now. This is a 30-year amortization schedule. It's a 10-year term, and it's a non-recourse loan. What does that mean? That means that the lender's only recourse against the loan going bad is taking the property back, not coming after Tim personally, which makes me feel good because as my net worth increases, I want my safety net to increase with it. I want to take some of that liability and some of that risk off the table. So what do we do with this $6.2 million? We paid back $3.96 million plus closing costs and fund some reserve accounts. We had a balance then of about $1.946 million. That's what they actually released to us. That is tax-free money. And after all operating costs, after all mortgage payments are made, debt service coverage, all those things, we have $252,000 per year in cash flow. So think about this. We got a loan, we raised some private money, paid our investors. After 24 months, we refinanced, got all the investors their money back, paid back our short-term loan, put a non-recourse long-term loan in place, fixed interest rate, and took $2 million off the table, just shy of that. Plus have over $20,000 a month in cash flow from this. So let's talk about what it looked like for me and my JV partner who was down there. Our responsibilities, we found the deal. We negotiated, found an off-market wholesale price deal that was amazing, and did all the due diligence on it. Physical due diligence, walking every single unit, taking a look at every single lease and cross-referencing it with the rent roll and all these different things. I personally guaranteed the bank loan. My JV partner, he executed the value add plan down there, managed the property. So he's managing it in perpetuity as well. It's not a one-time thing for as long as we own this thing, 10, 15, 20 years, who knows. He'll be in charge of property management. Now we have on-site property managers, on-site maintenance personnel, but he still, does some of the asset management, reviewing the reports and metrics and putting his eyes on the place and kicking the table once in a while if leasing needs to do better or collections need to do better, all those things. And then I qualified for the refinance loan, and then we're handling the ongoing property management. For that, we kept 90% of the equity in the deal in perpetuity. So of those refi proceeds, my business partners, it's two guys and me, so there's technically three of us. We got $1.75 million. That was split up three ways. So my chunk of that was just shy of $600,000, tax-free. We then earn $225,000 per year in cash flow. So my share of that is $75,000 a year. I gave myself a $75,000 raise when I bought this property, plus took $600,000 off the table tax-free. And it increased our equity because if you look back, the deal is worth $9 million. Our loan is $6 million. So there's still almost $3 million of equity left in the deal. 90% of that is 2.485. So it increased my net worth by a little over $800,000. So I got $600,000 off the table, increased my net worth by $800,000. It's $1.4 million. It increased my total net worth by, and give myself a $75,000 a year raise. It's a pretty good deal for me. Sounds like the investor got the shaft. Not quite. Let's take a look. So the investor put in $600,000. Here's how you can structure it and make it a big win for your investor. For 24 months, I paid them a 10% return on their investment. So they made $60,000 a year in preferred return, regardless of the property's performance. So over 24 months, they made $120,000 on their money. Then they kept 10% of equity in perpetuity. So that 10% of equity earned them 10% of the refi proceeds. They got an extra check for nearly $200,000 of tax-free loan proceeds. And they get 10% of the cash flow in perpetuity. That's an extra $25,000 a year. You gonna get rich off of that? Maybe not, but $2,000 a month covers my Chipotle bill, right? And then their equity that's still in the property, again, remember it's about $2.75 million of equity that's still in the deal based on the difference between our loan amount and what the property appraised for. So it increased the investor's net worth by $276,000. Is that a good return for the investor in 24 months? Hell yeah, it's an amazing return for the investor. All they had to do is passively invest $600,000. Now this happened to come from one investor. You can go out and you can syndicate this, make sure you file a security with the SEC. It actually protects both parties, including you and the investor. So if you want to go get 6 people to each invest $100,000, you could do that. Just make sure you talk to an SEC attorney on how to do it the right way. So the cash on cash between the fixed return of 10% plus the refi proceeds ended up yielding a 26.2% annual return, annualized return, cash on cash. Not to mention, this is tax advantaged. These pref returns are taxed at long-term capital gains when the property sells. They don't have to pay any taxes right now. And the tax-free loan proceeds never pay taxes on. So all in all, they made 26% of real cash without having a tax liability this year or last year or the year before. So again, they'll pay long-term capital gains on the $120,000. That's just added to their gain, their overall gain, whenever the property sells in the future. And if you add in this equity, if you add that on top of the refi proceeds, on top of the pref payments, it jumps their total return to 49.2%. This person's doubling their money, doubling their net worth, doubling the value of the money that they invest. Let's say it that way, every 24 months. It's unbelievable return for them. So here's the rub. You got to find good deals, and you got to be willing to get your hands dirty. You got to find off-market, direct-to-seller, wholesale-priced apartment buildings, or whatever commercial asset you want to invest in, and you got to be willing to buy distressed properties, meaning physically distressed, managerially distressed. And instead of hoping for appreciation, roll up your sleeves and force the appreciation, create the appreciation, increase the value of the building by putting the sweat equity in. I see so many people these days who aren't willing to do the friggin' work. Do the work. If you're willing to do the work, it compensates you in a profound way. So let's go through how to find deals. And before I get into how to find deals, I want you to think like, oh, well, are there enough deals out there? I don't know. There might not be enough deals. It's a hot market. It's a hot economy. First of all, there's over 20 million multifamily units in the United States. These are 2017 fun facts. So it doesn't even include anything that was built in 2018, 2019, or so far in 2020. The largest single owner in the entire country owns 500,000 units. That's 2.4% of the total supply out there. There are 2.5 million properties between 2 to 4 units. And there are 684,000 properties, that's probably closer to 700,000, maybe even a little bit more, that are 5 units or bigger. Okay? 43,000 of those are over 100 units. 43,000. Like, I just showed you one. Can one deal change your financial future forever? If you did one, right? That's a one simple deal in outside rural Georgia, right? These deals are all over the place. I buy 2 to 3 of these. I'd say last month I bought 2. This month I'll buy, the closing today is 2 properties. Next month I have 1, 2, 3 properties closing. So I buy 2 to 3 of these things every single month. It's insane. So how do you find them? Number one, email list. You know people who are already in real estate. If you're an active real estate investor, even the single family side, or you're a wholesaler or you're a broker, you have people on your email list in some sort of database. I didn't have a fancy CRM. I had an Excel spreadsheet. I still use an Excel spreadsheet. My team, they like the fancy stuff, but I use an Excel spreadsheet. And I have a database of everybody who's ever inquired on a property, anybody I've ever done business with, anybody I've ever hired, anybody I've ever talked to, anybody I've ever collected a business card from, wholesalers, brokers, vendors, contractors, you name it, they're all on a list. And what I do is I send an email out on a regular basis and I tell people that I'm buying apartment buildings. And if I'm telling them I'm buying apartment buildings, I'm staying top of mind. Because what you don't realize is even residential wholesalers, residential investors, residential brokers, they come across apartment buildings all the time or sporadically. But guess what? They don't know what to do with them. They don't know how to underwrite them. So what they do is they just discard those leads. They throw them away. But if you're top of mind, they might say, hey, let me forward this email over to Tim. Let me forward this email over to Susie. And they'll send you the deal. You underwrite it. You kick them a fee. Right? You pay them a fee for a referral, or you pay them give them some equity in the deal in perpetuity, whatever, and make it worthwhile for them. Provide some sort of value to them, and then you'll stay top of mind. I'm not the biggest owner of property in Cleveland, Ohio, but I'm probably the best known apartment buyer in Cleveland because I'm so active from a marketing standpoint. I send my team to the real estate investors associations and the landlord associations. I'm in the Facebook groups. I'm in the LinkedIn groups. I'm in the any other kind of online groups that we can be in. And I'm telling people I'm buying apartment buildings at all time. I'm on social media. Oh, that's not the next one. Darn, bad lead in. But dialing for dollars, right? And let me go back to RIAs. Like a lot of people there are tire kickers, right? They're not doing deals, but how many hundreds of bird dogs could be out there looking for deals for you and forwarding you opportunities? So whether you want to partner with them or not, let them send you deals, pay them a fee, and buy a deal from them. Dialing for dollars. Just like single family owners have telephones, so do multifamily owners. You could pick up the phone, call for sale by owners, or call for rent by owners. Hey, I'm not interested in leasing your place. I'm interested in buying the whole thing. Do you have any interest in selling? Just reach out. We got a deal from that once. Drive for dollars. Just like there's houses with tall grass and boarded up windows, there's apartment buildings with tall grass and boarded up windows. Here's a good one. Google reviews. Jump on Google search apartment buildings, Temple, Texas, right? And see what pops up in Temple, Texas, or whatever town you're in. And look for the ones with the worst reviews and call on them. If they got 1 out of 5 stars, 2 out of 5 stars, chances are they're not being taken care of. Chances are tenants are not paying their rent. Chances are tenants are moving out. Chances are occupancy is low and vacancy is high, and the owner doesn't have enough money to cover operating expenses and debt service, and they want to sell the building, or they have at least very serious interest in selling the building. So do the work. You got to be willing to do the stuff that other people aren't willing to do in order to find the deals that other people can't find. Vendors, kind of talked about this before, management companies, appliance companies, exterminators, landscapers. These are all people that work with multifamily and commercial real estate owners on a regular basis. And by just letting them know you're always in acquisition mode, say, hey, who do you know who might be interested in selling? Do you think an exterminator knows which buildings in the area are riddled with termites or roaches or bed bugs? Now, that doesn't sound too exciting, but to go and have to deal with that, but that's where the opportunity is. If you're willing to go deal with that and you can go and fumigate these places, it creates a massive opportunity because nobody else wants to deal with it. Landscapers, they know everybody who's paying their bills, not paying their bills, cutting their grass, not cutting their grass, slip and falls, all that stuff, right? Management companies, they're dealing with bad owners all the time. They'd rather you come in who's a qualified owner, who's going to take care of the property, who's going to invest into the property versus somebody else who's telling them, oh no, just use the rents. Just use, I'm not contributing any more money. Like that's a pain in the ass owner to deal with. So management companies would rather broker the transaction, earn a big fee, maintain property management, and actually increase their residuals because you're going to be investing in the property, bumping up rents. They're going to get more leasing fees. There's all these different things that come with it. So make sure you're reaching out to vendors. Direct mail. Just like single family owners have mailboxes, so do multifamily owners, right? So send out some direct mail. And actually it's about 1/10 the size of the list that you would have to mail it to. So you can actually spend a couple more bucks, have a little bit nicer of a mailing piece, and send less mailers than what you would have to do on the residential side. Delinquent property taxes. You can pull that list just like you can for the residential. Social media networking. A lot of you guys might know me on social media. You might have heard of me through Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. And again, if we're not connected, make sure we're connected. Send me a message and or send me a friend request, and let's link up on social media. I'm always putting out a lot of free content, a lot of free information on this stuff. So make sure that you friend me up. Tim Bratz. That's my name on everything, right? So make sure you're finding me and sending me a friend request. But telling people, and the more I educate people on social media, like I fell into this. I fell into the whole education side of things because I truly believe that wealth is like sunshine, and you getting sunshine doesn't take any sunshine away from me. There's a ubiquitous amount. There's there's so much of it, and wealth is the same way. And instead of creating competition, I'm actually creating collaboration in doing deals with you guys. I want to bring money to your deals. I want you to joint venture with you. I want to find a way to partner up in some capacity and build wealth together. And so I'm just sharing information on social media about how I do what I do. And all of a sudden these messages started coming in saying, hey, can I joint venture with you? Can I pay you to mentor me or coach me or all this other stuff? And so I do that now, but not because it's peanuts compared to what I make actually in doing deals, as you can see. But it brings more deal flow, and it brings more money flow, and it brings me great operating partners and all these different things. And it'll do the same thing for you if you're telling people that you're out there buying apartments and buying commercial real estate. Eviction court. Where are the most motivated landlords hanging out? Typically eviction court. Typically they're pretty pissed that the tenant hasn't been paying rent. They are milking free housing. Now you got to pay court fees to file eviction fees. To file the eviction, you got to pay an attorney to go and represent you. It's going to take a couple of weeks to get a court hearing, and then they're going to give them another couple of weeks to move out. Then you got to pay a bailiff to move all their stuff to the street. Then you got to pay a contractor to come in and renovate the unit. Then you got to pay a leasing agent to lease the unit. And it's not until 6 months later that they're actually collecting rent again. So go and hang out at eviction court. Talk to the management companies. Talk to the real estate attorneys. Talk to the landlords who are self-representing at eviction court and say, hey, I'm always buying properties. Let me know if you're interested in selling. Again, you got to do the stuff that other people aren't willing to do in order to find the deals that other people can't find. Building department violations. Go to your local building department, ask them who's got violations on their commercial properties. They'll gladly give you the addresses and maybe even give you the contact info for those owners. Those are motivated sellers. The city's on their ass about making all these improvements. Maybe they have money, maybe they don't have money, who knows, but reach out to them. All great sources for finding deals. So let's talk about buying criteria. How do you know if it's a good deal or not? This is my buying criteria. You guys can, find whatever buying criteria you want, depending on where you're at. But I strictly buy apartment buildings. My team only looks for apartment buildings right now. And we look for value add apartment buildings. Specifically, they're either physically distressed or they got bad management in place. Occupancy is lower than normal. Rents are lower than normal. It usually needs some physical improvements and added amenities. But I'm looking for it in good areas, right? Like the way you make the most money is you buy the ugliest house on the best block. I'm looking for the ugliest apartment building in the best area. I buy in A and B class areas nationwide, focusing primarily on landlord-friendly states, and but I do workforce housing. I don't do luxury anything. I think when the market's good, everybody can afford workforce housing. When the market shifts, which it's about to, all those luxury renters move into more of a workforce A-class housing. Instead of paying $3,000 a month in rent, maybe they bounce down to $1,200 or $1,500 a month in rent, but still being in a good area, good school district, safe locations. 80 units or bigger nationwide. And the reason for that is it allows for non-recourse financing and additional efficiencies. I can justify having an on-site property manager, an on-site maintenance personnel, and those kinds of things. And it justifies me sending my team out to fly out there and get a hotel room and spend days and traveling and all that kind of stuff. So it makes it more efficient that way. But if you're not part of the Commercial Empire like network, which is my coaching platform, we have an awesome back office where we this Facebook group that we share deals and share insights and share strategies, and any deals that come across that are smaller than 80 units get moved around in there, and they're looking for loan sponsors or investors and all these different things. And even if it's something that doesn't meet my buying criteria, there's other people in there that are actively doing deals, and it's a pretty awesome network. Minimum 10% capitalization cap rate at stabilization, meaning this is kind of a shortcut to be all in for 65% of the after repair value, because most of the markets that I buy in appraise for somewhere between 6.5 to 7% cap rates. So if I buy at a 10% cap rate, it allows me to just kind of shortcut that all in price. So what that means is, 12 months down the road, once it's renovated, once the rents are bumped up to market rate, I need to be all in. And it must yield me a 10% return on my investment. That's my minimum standard. All the deals I do, even the ones I'm closing on this month and next month and the month after, all yield at least a 10% cap rate at stabilization. So when people tell you there aren't deals out there, when people tell you that it can't be found, I promise you, through those resources and those ideas and those strategies that I shared, you can find opportunities to buy and be at a great basis in apartment buildings, even in today's hot market. And this is more of a delta that you're paying attention to. If you're in a market that appraises for a 5% or 5.5% cap rate, maybe you only need to be all in for like a 7.5 or 8% cap rate in order to make the same model work, in order to be able to refinance and cash out your investors and pay off the short-term loan. So there's different, and you can also just structure it in a way where maybe you give your investors a little bit more equity and they keep a little bit of their cash in long-term. It just kind of depends. For me, the minimum standard for any deal is I got to be able to cash out my investors. I want all the chips off the table, and I just want to play with house money moving forward. That to me means I'm at a low enough basis where I have a lot of different options. It's kind of like golfing, when I'm golfing by myself, or I gotta keep score just on my own ball. I know my score is not going to be that good because I don't have many different options. And so when you don't have any options, the quality is reduced pretty significantly. But if I was golfing a golf scramble and there's 3 other people with me, and I got some buddies who are much better at golfing than I am, and even if we're not, you take 4 whacks at the ball, chances are one of them is going to give you at least a decent lie, right? One of them is going to give you a decent look at the hole, and quantity in that regard leads to quality. And so, it goes I'm always looking for different options. And if you're a low enough basis, you have a lot of different options on exit strategies, on ways to get out of that property. I could refinance at my cost basis. I can refinance above my cost basis. I can sell the property. I can sell it at retail price through a broker. I could sell it off market at a wholesale price and still be able to pay off my total cost on it. I can sell or finance it, or figure out some sort of creative way to sandwich it through like a net lease or a master lease of some sort. And so there's a lot of different options. And when you have a lot of options, again, you're setting yourself up for more success. Let's talk about mitigating risk, because what I don't want you to do is be so excited after this that you go out and just start buying dumb, shitty properties. That's not what I want you to do. I want you to make sure you're buying in a calculated way, because just as much as one deal can increase your net worth, one deal can also wipe you out. Take your legs out completely, and you could lose a lot of money and a lot of your net worth. And I don't want that to happen to anybody here. So how do we mitigate risk in buying at the top of the market? And let me back up. I got in real estate 15 years ago, in 2005, when the market was gangbusters. And I started buying in 2009, 11 years ago, when the market had tanked. And I looked at people, real estate professionals, and some of them were able to ride out the storm, and others were worth tens of millions of dollars and got completely wiped out. And the way that I've structured my business today is based on not doing the things that the people did who got wiped out, and yes, doing the things that the people did who were able to ride out the storm and not only survive, but actually thrive when the market was down. They were the ones buying up everything for pennies on the dollar back in the day. So that's why I developed my business this way, and I'll talk through it with you. So number one, always buy at a wholesale price. This is my number one rule of real estate, not location, location, location. It's wholesale, wholesale, wholesale. If you always buy at a low enough basis, again, it gives you enough options to exit it any different way. I mean, the market can crash by 40%, and my properties are still, I could still sell them and break even, right? So always buy at a wholesale price. Never pay retail for anything. I was actually on a podcast earlier today and they said, what's the most you've ever paid for a car? I said, dude, I don't pay retail for anything, including cars. I called my buddy who owns a car dealership, a used car dealership, and I bought an $80,000 Mercedes for $37,000. And I got some extended warranty stuff. So I think it was like 42 grand total. It was 2 years old because I buy things at wholesale prices. I can turn that thing around and sell it for $50,000, $55,000 right now if I wanted to. I'll drive it for 3 years and then I'll sell it probably for what I owe on it, maybe even make a couple bucks on it. Why? Because I always buy at a wholesale price. Location is secondary. I've made a lot of money in the hood before. Why? Because I bought at a wholesale price. So number one, always buy wholesale. Number two, create appreciation. Never ever hope for appreciation. How do we create appreciation? Through the value add process, by putting in sweat equity, by buying something that's distressed and not being afraid of doing the work. That's how you push appreciation up instead of having to hope for it over time. Number three, buy for cash flow. The people who were developers that were going to resell the property and they were developing land, the land didn't cash flow. When the market shifted, they didn't have any cash flow to cover their overhead. And because of it, they all went bankrupt. I remember talking to one guy. He's like, oh yeah, I was worth $65 million before the market crashed. And then I lost everything. I said, how the hell is that possible? Like how my mind was boggled. I didn't understand how that was possible. It was because he was buying at a retail price. He was hoping for appreciation. He was speculating on appreciation and he didn't have any cash flow. That was the answer. He did the first four things on this chart wrong. That's how you lose $65 million overnight. Poof. Versus the person who bought at a wholesale price, forced appreciation, cashed out all their money, only had house money in play. They had cash flow. So even if values go to zero on paper, if you have somebody paying for your asset, meaning a tenant, paying rent every month, that's covering your operating expenses, that's covering your debt service and putting cash in your pocket, is there still value to that? Hell yeah. And you can ride out any sort of storm that occurs over the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years because you have cash flow. And you're paying down your principal amount, which allows you to continue to pay down your loan balance, and eventually the property will appreciate over time. And when you come out on the other end of a recession, guess what? You got enough equity built up where it now gives you more options again. Never speculate. Never, ever, ever hope. Never, ever, ever, not from an investment standpoint, right? We all do, we all hope, we all pray, but I'm never going to bank on that. I'm going to create the appreciation. I'm not going to speculate on it. I'm not going to hope the market continues to stay as good as it does. I'm going to plan for the worst and hope for the best, right? Stick to A, B, and maybe C plus areas. Why? Because these are the tenants that can afford housing when the market's good, and all those luxury renters move into more of an A class. Those A class renters move into B class. Those B class renters move into C plus class when the market shifts. So you're going to stay in a pretty good occupancy in these areas. I don't do too much C plus stuff anymore just because I'm trying to refine my portfolio just to A and B. It's just easier to manage and more scalable. But you can get some really good returns if you're willing to do like the C plus type stuff. I don't really go below C plus just because it's too much management headaches, and the turnover is too high, even if you have amazing management in place. So that's what I stick to. And make sure you're completing all due diligence. Do not skimp on due diligence. What do I mean by that? When you walk into a 100-unit apartment building and the owner's willing to show you 5 units and say, oh, this is pretty indicative of what all the units look like. We don't need to walk the other 95. This gives you a good sampling of what this is the best unit and the worst unit. Yeah, everything else falls between these two. And then you take their word for it and you buy it and you get screwed. Why? Because buyers are liars and sellers are worse. And so I never ever take the seller's word for granted or at face value. Why? Because I've been through it before. Ask me how I know, because it's happened to me. I'm going through it right now in a 74-unit portfolio that I purchased a couple years ago, dealing with it before I learned this mistake. So you got to complete all the due diligence, all the physical due diligence, scoping the plumbing lines, bringing a roofer in to do one of these thermo scans of the roof. It's going to cost you a couple $1,000s for all that stuff. It's cost of doing business. It's better than costing you tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars after the fact because you didn't do that. So spend the money on the front end, even if you don't buy it. Again, it's just the cost of doing business. And then all the financial due diligence as well. Meaning my team was upstairs the past 3 days, double checking and cross-referencing all the rent rolls with every single lease on all 264 units that we bought today. Double checking everything, making sure the rental rates matched up, making sure the security deposits matched up, making sure there wasn't anything crazy written in the lease or any credits given or anything like that. So that way we have the right prorations done at the time of closing. So, and not only are you cross-referencing those things, but also cross-referencing it with the bank deposits. Ask me how I know. Because I bought an 80% occupied building once, and it was only 25% economically occupied, meaning only 25% of the tenants were actually paying money. It's the only building, I thought I was going to flip this thing in 6 months, make 300 grand. It took me a little over a year, about 15 months, and I wrote a check for $40,000 to get rid of it. So it can swing the needle in a big way just by your lack of attention to one minor detail. So make sure you're completing all the due diligence. Here's some more. Stress the underwriting. When a deal comes across our desk, we let's say we run market rate rents, and market rate rents are $750 to $800 in that area. We will run the numbers at $750 a month. If we can get $800 a month in rents, hey, it's icing on the cake. It's just added benefit. Right now, I'm underwriting deals at a 5% interest rate. I think interest rates are going to go up. If they don't and they stay at 4%, then guess what? It's going to make the deal even sweeter for myself and the investors. I'm assuming that LTVs are going to drop when the banks tighten up, and I'm not going to be able to get 75 or 80% LTV. I'm assuming that I'm going to get 70% loan to value. So I'm stressing the underwriting in many different ways. And if the numbers still work, then I know it's probably a pretty good deal. We're pretty conservative and pretty safe in that regard. So I'm trying to kill the deal. I'm looking for ways to kill the deal. If you can't kill the deal, what does that mean? It means it's a pretty good deal. I'm also looking for favorable financing terms. So just like on the refi that I showed you guys in the case study, I get non-recourse loans. It's not me personally guaranteeing it anymore. Their only recourse is the property itself. Now there's bad boy carve-outs. If I lie, cheat, steal, yeah, they can come after me personally, but obviously I'm not going to do any of those things. And so their only recourse is the property. Number two, fixed interest rates. Our interest rate's going to go up or down over the next 10 years. They're at historical lows. They're only going to go up. So we fix the interest rate at a low interest rate. I don't want variable. Number three, we do long-term amortization schedules. So I want a 30-year amortization. Oh, but Tim, it's going to take you 30 years to pay it off. Is it? What if I make one extra payment a year and then I pay it off in 23 years? If I make 2 extra payments a year, I pay it off in 16 years. So I can still pay it off sooner if I want to, but I'm not forced to. I don't want to put a 20-year amortization in place because then it forces me to cover a big nut every single month. And I don't want to have to do that. If the market does shift and occupancy does drop and rents do decrease slightly, I want it to adversely affect my cash flow and my operation. So while the market's good, great, I'll make some extra payments. I'll pay down principal faster and get it paid off in 15, 20 years. But I don't want to have to do that if the market does shift. At the same time, I do also a long-term loan. So in residential, you might get a 30-year mortgage and it's a 30-year term also. In commercial, they don't do that. It's usually a shorter term, but they'll give you a 30-year amortization schedule. So that means it'll balloon in usually 5 years or 7 years or 10 years or 15 years. And I don't like doing the 5 to 7 year stuff because you can't pay down enough loan balance by natural principal pay down. And it doesn't allow you enough time for the market to appreciate or go through a full market cycle. So I usually do 10 to 15 year loan terms. And that allows me to ride out any storm. So I don't have to repay that loan. I mean, think about it this way. If you bought in the peak in 2006 of the last market cycle, and you went through the Great Recession to bottom of the barrel basement prices, by 2016, the values were actually more than what it was in 2006. At least break even. Most markets, it was more. And it appreciated that much more over the course of 10 years. So if you have a 10-year cycle or 10-year term on your loan, it allows you to go through a full cycle with your investors, or I'm sorry, with the property, to again pay down enough principal, let the property appreciate, get through any sort of market cycle. And again, that was a worse market cycle. But if you had a 5-year loan term and you had to go and refinance in 2011, you're screwed. You're in bad shape. I was buying buildings and all into buildings for $10,000 to $15,000 a unit in some pretty decent areas. I turned down buildings at $24,000, $25,000 a unit in B+ areas because I was buying them for $16,000 a unit back in 2011, 2012, 2013. So imagine having to refinance when that's what was going on with values. You're losing the property. Your investors are losing all their money if they still have some cash in. So always get longer term financing terms. Cash out the investors quickly. Again, it's like being at the casino, gambling. Once you double your money, you take your chips off the table. Now it's only house money in play. Now, this is calculated risk, right? I know what these things are going to be worth, but when there's no money in play, you can't back yourself into a corner and have to make bad decisions because you owe your investors some sort of, you owe your investors their money back. So I want to cash them out as quick as possible. Then we have a lot of different options. And then always have multiple exit strategies. This is what we talked about before. Lots of different options. Hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully you guys took some pictures of the screens on those. So how do we do some deals together? One, you can wholesale deals to me or joint venture somehow. If you do, email them over to my boy, Nick Burton. He's my director of acquisitions, and he looks at probably 20 deals a day. And that's all he does is look at deals. So that's his email. If you have any questions on private lending or learning more about that side of thing or the syndication side, email my chief investment officer. His name's Fadi Boumitri. I sent him a message, went to high school together and played basketball together. And then he was my business attorney for 6 years when I moved back to Cleveland and became a partner about 1.5 years ago. So he works with all of our private money lenders and does all our syndication type stuff. He's a stud. Both these guys, A players. If you want to joint venture, I only joint venture with people who are educated on this stuff. And you got to understand the processes. You got to understand what this looks like from a beginning to end type process map and flow chart, right? And knowing the psychology behind all these things and how we do what we do and why we do what we do. And so I only partner with people that are educated. And so I have Commercial Empire. It's a event we host 4 times a year. That's it. We got one coming up at the end of February 25, 26, 27 in Tampa. And if you guys are interested in plugging in, would love to have you. Call the number on the screen right there, 440-754-0944, and talk to one of the guys on my team. One of my the kind of people who can educate you on exactly what's going on and a lot of different options on how we can start working together on some things. So you can also fill out the app at commercialempire.com and then they'll reach out to you, or you can give them a call right now at 440-754-0944. And here's what we talk about at that event. It's a 3-day event. And it is first class. If you guys go online and look at any of the reviews on the event of people who have actually been there, it is like the reviews are off the charts. The results of our students are off the charts. And it's I'm really, really proud of the event. This isn't one of the run to the back of the room with your credit card type things. There's no upsell. I mean, we have a mastermind and we have some ongoing support type stuff that we talk about at lunch on day number 2. Otherwise, it's pure content. It's 100% information and networking with some of the best operators and the biggest money investors in the entire country. Meaning there's people that come out to my event who flip 200, 300, 400 houses per year. There were 3 people at my last event who were liquid 9 figures. That's over $100 million liquid that came out to my last event. So that's the caliber of the people that are coming out to these events and the kind of attention that we're getting. So one, there's massive takeaways from there. I introduced you to my entire team. Well, let's go through it. Find deals. Off-market direct to seller. I went through a bunch of them with you guys. I have some other stuff that's ninja strategies that I don't talk about here, but I do talk about it at my event. So you come out to the event, you get some of those other ninja strategies along with some resources of where we find owner contact information, emails, phone numbers, so that way you can do some things and hit them from a couple different directions in order to figure out if they're willing to sell and when they're willing to sell and start building those relationships. So we got some really, really cool stuff on how to find deals, again, that are off market, that you're not competing with brokers with or other investors with. Due diligence. So how does my dude, Nick, run through 20 deals a day? You guys have seen these massive spreadsheets with 10 pages long, and you got to plug in all these different numbers, and it takes an hour to actually underwrite a deal if you're doing it quickly, right? We don't do any of that stuff. It's nonsense. You don't need to do it. It's some sort of, trick or something in order to try to get you to go buy some overpriced calculator Excel spreadsheet for $200 to $500. I'm going to show you how to analyze a deal in 2 minutes. And then I'm going to show you how to analyze it in about 10 seconds. So, and then we'll go through some more, in order to at least see, is it worth spending more time on? So that way you're not underwriting a deal that you find out an hour and a half later is a crap deal. This allows you to sort through deals pretty quickly to say, hey, if I get 20 deals a day, I'm going to spend time on these 4 because these 4 actually make a little bit of sense. And then I'm going to show you how to underwrite those 4 in about 5 minutes, a little bit deeper underwriting. So then we do the financial underwriting, and then how to underwrite it and how to do all the financial due diligence as well, and then all the physical due diligence. And I give you a whole bunch of resources, a whole bunch of checklists, all these different things to make sure that you're not missing anything on the due diligence side of things, both financial and physical due diligence. You have all my process maps. Everything that I use in my current business is uploaded into the vault, and you have physical copies of everything that I use to inspect units physically and checklists, for all the financial stuff. Financing. My commercial mortgage broker, who I've talked about a couple times, is actually going to be down there sitting on a panel on day 1, along with my director of acquisitions, Nick Burton, along with my chief investment officer, Fadi Boumitri, and another one of my hard money lenders. One guy that I've done over $5 million of deals with will be on that panel talking about how to raise money, how to secure financing, how to get sponsorship from other people, like all these different things, all the different loan types, and how to weigh out the best options based on interest rates and loan terms and amortization schedules and prepayment penalties and all these and loan to values and all these different things. Raising equity. Again, that panel is going to be about acquisitions on day 1, acquisitions and raising private money and acquiring financing. And so I'm going to give you a bunch of strategies and techniques on how I raise private money. I raised $2.5 million in about 18 hours last week. I've raised $4 million in 48 hours before. I've raised, I got $600,000 due next Tuesday for a closing that I haven't even started raising it on yet. Right? I'm not even worried about it because that's how good I am at raising private money and how strategic we are on all this stuff. So I'm going to give you all my strategies, all my techniques, all the psychology behind raising private money. And then Fadi's going to come up there and talk to you guys about how to stay SEC compliant. The last thing you want to do is end up in jail, right? And I don't want you guys to ever get in any trouble. We keep things very black and white about what we do and how we do it. And so I'm going to make sure that you guys fully understand what you can do and cannot do when raising and syndicating capital for commercial real estate deals. Then I have my COO, Matt Carlin, is there. And he'll sit up on a panel. I'll talk about the value add process, and then we can ask him questions about what that looks like to do the project management, do the property management, managing the contractors on these massive jobs like the deal that we're closing on today. It's a $3 million renovation process. We're going to deploy $250,000 a month in capital improvements over the next 12 months on this property, or on these 2 properties. They're next door to each other. And that's a little bit of work, right? That's over $10,000 a day in improvements that are being made to these properties. How is it possible? How do we do that? How do you manage that? We talk about the step-by-step process on how we do that, and then give you a bunch of resources on contractors, national vendors, national contractors, national property managers, and regional property managers to manage your properties as well. And then all the different exit strategies. So I'm all about holding for long-term legacy wealth building, but we do a little bit of wholesaling. There's stuff that comes across our desk that doesn't meet our buying criteria. And I know people who would buy it because it might be too small for me or more C class. And I'm trying to stick to A and B class or whatever. So we wholesale. We'll probably wholesale about 4 buildings in the next 60 days. And then sometimes we flip. Not necessarily is that my strategy. I always buy in order to hold long-term, but I mean, there's some hedge funds and REITs buying at some ridiculous valuations right now. And guess what? I can be bought. I know how to go out and find better deals off market, and I'm willing to get my hands dirty. So I'm actually looking at potentially selling 1,200 units in my portfolio, all the C plus B minus type stuff. And if I sell that, I think I can double my money. I'm into those properties for about $45 million, and I think I can sell them for about 85 to maybe even $90 million. And that would be a hell of a cash out on my side. And I mean, that leaves me with still, over 2,500, 2,800 units that are all A class and B class. And then puts $40 million in my pocket, my investor's pocket, my partner's pocket. Good chunk of that's mine too. So that makes me really excited. So I'm considering selling, so you got to be smart, right? Like, what's your highest return on equity? Could I take that $40 million and roll it into other deals and create the value again? Yeah, I know how to do that. I have the operation, the team, and the deal flow and everything to do that. So maybe that's what I do. So we're always, you're taking a look at the different exit strategies that you have and what to do with different properties, even if they don't meet your long-term buying criteria. How can you still monetize those? And then resources. I already talked about how you have access to my entire power team, my commercial mortgage broker. I'll intro you to my estate planning attorney, my CPA, all these different people. I don't know who's all going to be coming down from a discussion panel standpoint. I know my team will be there. And then like the vendors and stuff that I use, I'll at least share their contact information with you guys. So that way I've sorted through, half a dozen CPAs over the past 15 years I've been in business, or 11, 12 years, whatever it was. And I've got the best one now, right? I've got the best attorneys now. I've got the best mortgage brokers now. I've already gone through the bad people in order to find the best ones for you guys. So I share my entire power team, all the documentation, all my checklists, everything you could possibly want is shared in a vault of information for you guys. So if this is something you guys want to plug into, again, this is how we can do business together. Send deals to Nick. Send any questions about private lending to Fatty. And if you want to come out to Commercial Empire, I'd love to have you guys. This is going to be our best and biggest event yet. It's down in Tampa, February 25, 26, 27. And at a beautiful resort down there, golf course and resort. And it's going to be just stellar people. My good buddy Mark Evans is actually going to be down there as well. He's speaking on day 2. I'm giving him an entire out. Like, we'll probably do like a fireside chat kind of a thing where we just talk about mindset and how to move from being the mule in your business to being the magician in your business, and how to put the right people and team building in place. That's another one of the things I talk about on day 3 is like how I compensate my team, what my organizational chart looks like. Everything is on the table. I'm a complete open book on all this stuff. So it's a lot of good stuff. Again, the reviews are off the charts. I get messages on a regular basis saying that this event, Commercial Empire, is the best education and real estate event they've ever been to. And so we have a lot of pride in it. I know you guys will not be disappointed. My goal is to get you a 10x return on your investment in a probably 100x return on your investment within the next 12 months by educating you on how to go out and do one deal. If you could just go out and do one deal, does that justify, coming out to an event for 3 days and spending some coin on it? I know the event's worth it. Question for you is, are you willing to invest in yourself, right? Do you believe enough in yourself where you're willing to put the money into your own education and resources and connections? Like, literally everything's taken care of. Like, everything that you need is at your fingertips. And I'm going to teach you how to go out and find deals on day 1. And then I'm going to teach you how to raise money for those deals on day 2 and how to operate those deals on day 3. So this is the time hopefully 2020 is the best year you've ever had. I know it can be. And if you want to partner up on deals with me and you want me to bring my balance sheet and sponsor the loans and raise private money for your projects, you got to be educated though. I only partner and I only joint venture with people who come out to this event. So you can wholesale deals to me. I'll buy them for a fee and get involved that way. But we only joint venture and actually partner up with people where you can be boots on the ground and do project management and be an asset manager of the property. If you're educated and you know what you're doing. I mean, we're talking about millions of dollars and real big deals here. And so I would never, ever put that in the hands of somebody who couldn't handle it and wasn't educated on that. So we have a fiduciary duty to our investors to make sure that they're taken care of. And my team is very involved in the process as well. Whenever we joint venture on deals, where we're walking you through the whole process, where not only are you getting equity in the deal, but you're also getting educated on how to do this stuff on your own. You know, if you want to keep on doing deals with us, we'd love to keep on doing deals. If you want to break off on your own and do deals in the future on your own, you can do that. But this is a way for you to have a partnership with us in a project, get educated, get a master's degree on how to buy apartment and commercial real estate for pennies on the dollar of what a real MBA would cost you. So, yeah, if this is something you guys are interested in, please fill out the form at commercialempire.com. My team will reach out or call that number.
Down too for everybody. If you guys have any questions, please give us a call. I know we've been kind of going for about an hour and a half now. Tim, do you have some time to do a little bit of Q&A right before we finish?
Yeah, I have about probably 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
I gotta go wire money for this.
Yes, that's very important. Can you see all the questions in the Q&A section, Tim?
Hang on a second. I cannot. Can you just read them to me? Or maybe I can. Hang on a second. Where? Oh wait, there it is. Does that cover up the screen though?
No, I don't see it.
Okay, good. Yeah, so you guys can still see Plug In Commercial Empire. I want to leave that up there for anybody.
It's still up.
Can we call into this via a call-in number? I don't know. Maybe it's late for that. Do you have an email template or form you send to an interested seller to gather the information you need to analyze a deal? Yes, I do have that. I share it in the vault with everybody who comes out to Commercial Empire. Hello from New Hampshire. Big fallacy I just heard is just get started. Go for a $10 million or $20 million deal. I heard it's actually easier to go after the 100 million plus units, better management companies, more professionals. Yeah, well, so Patrick's got a good question. So he's saying, hey, should I just go after a $100 million deal or should I go after a $10 or $20 million deal or smaller? And is it easier to do bigger deals? Yes, it is easier to do bigger deals. Only if you have experience in doing smaller deals. So if you have not bought an apartment building yet, nobody's going to give you a seat at the table to go and bid on a $100 million portfolio. It's not going to happen. Just not going to happen. I mean, most of my deals that I do are they're bigger than what the small investors can qualify for, and they're more messed up than the ones that the hedge funds or the REITs want to buy. Right? They're not willing to get their hands dirty. They're lazy. They just want to stroke a big check and have it cash flowing from day one. So most of my stuff is in that ballpark of I'd say $5 to $25 million is probably my average sweet spot. Once you get once you get to that size, typically over 80, 100 units, you can qualify for, then it justifies having on-site management, on-site maintenance personnel, and you can layer it with third-party management. Like my management company only charges me 3.5%, and they handle all that stuff. They handle staffing and all those different things. So they charge me 3.5%. I take on payroll, obviously, for the on-site manager and maintenance personnel, but everything else is a pass-through. And so you can get great regional and national management companies even at a $5 or $8, $10 million deal. So here's the thing: those big deals, they don't come across your desk, and you don't have an opportunity to bid on those unless you're doing a lot of other deals, unless you're building up a name. And even if it does come across your desk, you can't qualify for it. I just got a buddy who shot me a message the other day. He's got a $115 million deal, and somehow it came across his desk. He doesn't know what to do with it. He can't raise the money. He can't sponsor the loan. He can't operate it. He's got to bring it people for every aspect of it. and doesn't know what he's doing, right? So like start out doing I started out organically doing an 8-unit building. Then I got another 8-unit. Then I got a 14-unit. Then a 23. Then a 31. Then I bought it. Then I had 100 units. I got an 84 unit. And then I got another 60. And then I bought this 134. And then I bought, like all these other different deals. And as my portfolio kept on doubling and doubling and doubling, I can double the size of my portfolio. So once I was at 600, 700 units, I could go buy 700 more units. Now I'm at 1,500. Then I bought a 400 unit portfolio. I was over 2,000 units. And, I was able to keep on just growing organically that way. Now you can fast track that. And if you do come across a 100 unit or a 200 unit apartment building, call me up, reach out to Nick. We'll sponsor the loan. We'll be involved. We'll buy it from you or kick you your wholesale fee as equity in the deal if you want to do that way. Or you come out and get educated. You can actually partner and joint venture with us on that. So, are you going to get a 100 unit? Like I haven't even come across a 100 unit apartment portfolio yet. Like this one's the first one that's come across my desk, and it's a shitty deal. Like it's a 5 cap that they're buying it and building it for. I'm like, dude, why would you ever do that? Go and like make a bunch of money on a bunch of other stuff, and then wait for the market to tank, and then go buy this thing for a 10 cap, right? Like there's no reason to force deals at the height of a market. That's like the height of stupidity to me. So great question, Patrick. Really like that one. What's the difference between the syndication you do and the syndication other apartment investing structures do? So if you go on, I think I just posted something on this on Instagram and on LinkedIn like a week or two ago. So Chevelle, go over to Instagram or LinkedIn and look up my profile and connect with me there. And I do like a 10-minute blurb on the difference between traditional syndication and my syndication method. I'd love to dive into it because I believe deeply in my syndication method versus traditional, but it's going to take a little bit too much time. I have the same question as Josh. If I have a development project, how do I get in touch with you or your team to present the deal? Reach out to Nick. Craig, what was your rehab cost per door? On that 134 unit, bought it for $2 million, right? And I put another $2 million in, something like that, 1.8 and 1.9, I think it was. So I don't know, $15,000 a door, I guess the renovation budget was. That included some of the holding costs and stuff too, and a little bit. So I'd say I was right around there though, right around 15 grand a unit. Jay, excellent webinar. I flipped 2 large apartment buildings myself. Attaboy, Jay. Would like to connect as I have some funding sources, 5% APR, debt only, and a trust system to legally avoid income. Awesome. Shoot me a message. Anonymous, how many deals do you look at on average to find one deal that fits your criteria? So that you guys saw my buying criteria, and I buy, again, 2 to 3 deals a month. We look at about 400. So it gives you, like, we buy less than 1% of the deals we look at, but I have very strict buying criteria. And we could close on a lot more if I was willing to go smaller than 80 units, or if I was willing to go into like C or C+. Like a lot of stuff fits my financial buying criteria, but I'm just very strict on the areas that I buy in and the size and those kinds of things. So we could buy a lot more deals. Again, we wholesale probably double that also, another 2 deals a month, let's say. So we sort through a lot of deals. I'm very strict about what we buy. But early on, I bought more stuff. I wasn't as strict. I needed to build my balance sheet. So I got into C-class properties. I bought stuff that was 15 units and 25 units and 10 units. And so it helped me build my balance sheets to then qualify for those larger deals and the nicer deals. And so I just kept on doing deals. So I wouldn't say to not buy the big, or not buy the small stuff, right? Buy the small stuff. Those little victories give you momentum and starts building up credibility in the people that you're doing business with. And, helps you speak more, educated when you're talking to private money investors. And now you have a background and you have a reputation for delivering on some of this stuff. So yeah, good question though. What's the best way to set up a team and responsibilities? I'd figure out what are the most important funnels, which is probably deal flow, money flow, and operations. And I'd make sure you have a C-level executive to fill in each one of those responsibilities. And I would only compensate based on performance of the property, or performance of the portfolio, or performance of your company. I pay my team a base salary. Everybody on my team, including myself, gets somewhere between $40,000 to $50,000 a year salary. That way, everybody knows their bills are paid. Everybody knows that they can cover their rent, or they cover their house mortgage, or their car payment. Their car's full of gas, the food's on the table, all those things. But it's not enough to be comfortable. It's not enough to be content. And they're all more ambitious than that. So everything else is paid out in profit share or equity. Craig, hey Tim, this is Craig. My question is, what is the best way to interview with you for a boots on the ground position? Come out to Commercial Empire, and then let's talk. Let's find some deals. Let me know where you're at, where you're going. I can tell you this: my partner in Georgia, who brought me this deal, he knew boots on the ground. He understood operations. He understood how to find deals, and that was the value in his side. He also runs the local property management company at cost. And so he's got a big chunk of equity in all of our deals. And just the deals he has with me, his net worth has increased over the past 4 years by over $50 million. Just the deals I'm in with him. So his net worth is over $50 million in those projects because of him willing to go out and do the work. Now, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I'm willing to do the work. I'll go and I'll hire a GC and then I'll come and put my eyes on it every 2 weeks. No, my buddy down in Georgia lives in the property 3 days a week. He travels 2-3 hours from his hometown in Atlanta, outside of Atlanta, goes to the property, sleeps in a B-class apartment building 3 days a week, 3 nights a week, leaves his family during that time to kick the tables and make sure contractors are moving ahead. They're on time, they're on budget, make sure the leasing agents are doing what they're supposed to be doing, making sure marketing's dialed in. And he sleeps on a blow-up mattress in one of our units. And the guy's worth $50 million. I had somebody come to me once and they said, hey man, here's what this guy does. Would you do the same thing? Trying to figure out if they're serious or not. They said, dude, I would never live in any of those units. Yeah, that's why you're not worth $50,000. And this guy's worth $50 million, right? That's the mindset of a decamillionaire and a cent. Like if we never bought another property and we just let these properties pay themselves down over the next 15, 20 years and let them appreciate over time, you know what his net worth is? His net worth is $250 million if we never buy another property together. He's worth $250 million for a 4-year season of his life to work his ass off and sleep in a B-class apartment. Are you okay doing that? To be worth $250 million and change your family tree forever? He's willing to do it. He doesn't complain about it. He does it gladly. It was his idea. He leaves his 5 kids 3 days a week. Well, I might want to leave my 5 kids 3 days a week too. Just kidding. But leaves them 3 days a week in order to focus while they're growing, while they're going through school. He's missing some parts of their life, right? And now he's flexible, right? He might change the days of the week depending on if the kid's got a game or a dance recital or something like that. So he's a great dad, but at the same time, he's willing to do the work. He knows it's a season of his life. And over the course of the next 24 months, he'll never have to work again. And he'll be worth $500 million based on the momentum and what we're doing together. So are you willing to do that? That's the biggest interview question there, right? Show me, prove it to me. I shoveled shit for 7, 8, 9 years. No, I mean, up until a year ago, I was still going out to the properties. I was still walking every single unit personally. I've been doing it for 10 years. People see today and they see the success I'm having today and they think it's overnight luck, right? No, I've been paying my dues. I've been paying my dues for a long time. And just now, now it looks like I'm an overnight success. So, if you have that type of mentality where you can dedicate a season of your life to changing your family tree forever from a financial standpoint, I promise you, there's nothing else better out there than this. Right? This is why I keep on doing real estate. If there was something better, I'd be doing it. I talk to people about wealth building. My podcast is legacywealthshow.com. If you guys aren't subscribed, you guys should hop on there. Ton of content, ton of value on there. And we talk about wealth all the time. And there's nothing else better than buying commercial real estate. I promise you. There's nothing more stable, more predictable, better returns, building more equity, better cash flow than commercial real estate if you're buying it the way that I'm teaching you to buy it. Is there a population count you look for before entering a certain market? Sometimes, not really. Do we go in like the sticks somewhere? No, not necessarily. It depends on the population growth, but also like the city that I live in right now is an A-class city and it's got phenomenal schools, but the population's been stagnant or slightly declining actually for the past decade. Would I buy there? Hell yeah, I'd still buy there, even if population isn't there. But that's a city of 20,000, but it's got a metro area of whatever it is. I mean, there's probably 2 million in Metro Cleveland. So, I'm looking for economic anchors. I'm looking for higher education, hospital, government, military base, big business, something like that. That's going to create an anchor of jobs, and then all the other ancillary jobs that come around it. But most of the cities that I buy in are secondary and tertiary cities. It's the Charleston, South Carolinas, Columbia, South Carolinas, outside of Atlanta, Georgia, Savannah, Georgia, Cleveland, Ohio, Springfield, Illinois, Oklahoma City, like secondary towns in Texas, Louisiana, Alabama. I own some stuff in Fayetteville, North Carolina, so like I'm looking for those kinds of cities, coastal or the panhandle of Florida, great area, right? I'm looking for those kinds of areas, secondary, tertiary type markets. It's usually where you get the best deals, and or being part of your acquisitions team. I'm rolling through some more questions. Hi, Tim. How do you reach out? How do I reach you on a distressed deal in Texas that can be had for less than 5K a unit, over 100 units? Reach out to Nick Burton at legacywealthholdings.com. How do you classify, or what separates Class A, B, and C? Great question, Jason. It's pretty arbitrary. It's really the areas I desire to live in would be A class. The areas, like I grew up in a B class area, good, safe, decent area, but not like the best area. The average home was $100,000, $120,000, but still decent schools. You don't aspire maybe to live there unless you're coming from a C class or D class type area, but it's not the best, but it's still good. I didn't feel like I was ever scared for my safety when I was riding my bike around, or my parents let me play it in the front yard and down the street, no problem, and I got a great education and all that, but it's not like the best schools. It's not the biggest houses. It's not the best, whatchamacallit, like gated communities, right? So A class area are the best. B class area is that workforce, blue collar kind of thing. C class area is places where, hey, I'd be maybe willing to go and potentially invest during the day. I just don't want to live there, right? I don't want to live there. And D class is the war zone. That's the stuff you wouldn't go during the day with a gun and an army. Marshall, good question though. If you don't refi by when you think you can, do your investors take more of the deal? You can structure it any way you want. So usually I have an agreement with whoever the joint venture partner is or whoever the project manager is that says, hey, how long is this going to take? And I know this before I go and raise the money. And they say it's going to take 6 months. Great. I'm going to raise the money based on an 18-month time frame. So 3 times what you told me is going to need. And I'm going to give a cushion there. So that way we can buy it, renovate it, and refinance it in 18 months. If for any reason it takes longer than that, then the investors aren't going to get their money that I projected. I projected returns based on 18-month turnaround on their money. And it's not their fault that you didn't turn the deal around, project manager. So if it goes longer than that, then there's certain thresholds, right, that need to be met. So depending on what it looks like, they might have to give up a little bit of their equity to the investors in order to make sure the investors are made whole, right? And this isn't, I'm not trying to put people in a headlock. It's just, they told me 6 months and I'm giving 3 times that. You got to screw up pretty bad to be 3 times over what you gave me the number on, And so we do it when we're the operators and project managers, and we do it with joint venture partners if that's the case as well. So that way everybody's protected. And would I take the equity away? I have not yet to date, and I could have on a couple occasions. Because the market was better and the operations were better and the rents were higher, and we We're super conservative and stress the numbers on the underwriting. So it actually returns the same or better returns for our investors. So I didn't have to in that regard. And the other thing is, you know, I definitely want it hanging over somebody's head, so that way they know we could take it away at any time if we needed to. But that's how I keep everybody honest, man. Everybody needs to be in the same boat, rowing in the same direction, with the same goals and the same vision, in order to get these things to the finish line. That's the only way it can happen. That's why traditional syndication doesn't always work, because you're sitting across the table from each other versus on the same side of the table. How many doors and units do you own? Michael, I own 3,700 some units. Got another 500 some under contract right now. And I talked about that at the beginning. So you can rewatch the episode or the webinar. Hi, Tim. Hi, Kim. What's a good source that covers the due diligence process in detail? I don't know any. We created our own due diligence checklist off of losing time and losing money on all the deals we've done over the years. And so that's available in the vault through the Commercial Empire platform. Is there a minimum population count? I already asked for that. Maybe did I just go down? How do you raise capital to this degree without a proven multifamily track record? Well, you start out with smaller deals, you know, or you joint venture and partner up with somebody who has deals, and you start reaching out to people and say, hey, this person has a track record. You know, you have the trust with your private money lender, and then you can edify somebody else who has the track record and help raise money for one of their deals. Now you can't be compensated. Like, one big SEC thing that's going on right now is some of these gurus out there are teaching people to raise money for their deals, and they're compensating those people for raising money on those deals. That is not allowed. It is illegal. You can get in a lot of trouble for it, and so can that guru or that syndicator. So you cannot be compensated solely for raising money for somebody else's deal. If you are involved in the deal in another capacity, meaning you're also sponsoring the loan, or you're also found the deal, or you also your boots on the ground, or your project manager, your property manager, your asset manager, there's a lot of other ways to get involved. If you're involved in another way, then you can raise money for somebody else's deal, but and earn some sort of compensation for that, either through equity or compensation. But talk to your SEC attorney on that stuff, and make sure it's completely black and white, because two big guys just got taken down for doing some bad stuff, or doing that, and it's not looking good, like potential jail time even. So be careful there. Do you have an email template or form you send interested seller? Yeah, we have I mean, a little bit, but we really just kind of get on the phone with them and run through the numbers and then we ask them for a bunch of financial information. But we talk about all that stuff at Commercial Empire. I'm getting new questions, so then it drags it back up. So then I got to scroll back down. How are we doing on time? I got time for like two more answers. How do you approach an off-market land development deal? Yeah, I mean, typically on the land development stuff, you contract it with a small deposit, and most of these land sellers, they should know that you're going to go through all the due diligence and try to get it zoned and get the density that you're looking for and all the approvals in place during the due diligence phase. And so it's usually an open-ended closing time frame where you say, hey, I'm going to close 60 days after all the approvals and permits come through from the city. And so that's typically what we do. So I've had land under contract. Like I just bought 53 acres. I don't know, over 50 acres in South Carolina last Friday. And I have it had under contract for $2.9 million. And we went through getting it rezoned. It was a warehouse or something before, and we got it rezoned into multifamily, and then we got the density increased, and then we got some tax benefits and grant money from the city, and we increased the value of that land. I now have 3 offers on it just to buy the land. I'm into it for $2.9 million. With closing costs and everything else, probably 3.1. So let's just say $3 million. I have an offer on it for $7.4 million as is, close in 60 days, no contingencies. I have an offer on it for $8.2 million, close in 120 days, but they got to sell their property before they can buy this. That's the only contingency. And then I have another offer for $15.7 million from a developer who wants to build single family, but they need it seller finance. So they're willing to give me my $3 million up front. And then they want to give me $2 million every like 90 days for about 2 years. And you got a lot of options. You can increase the value on land too. The problem with land is it doesn't cash flow. So what does that look like if this person does default, right? All my investors are paid back, so that's cool, but there's a lot of different moving parts with it, so you just got to be careful. Also, how are you able to find favorable financing terms for distressed assets? So Marshall, good question. Banks will not finance stuff that's less than like 80-85% occupied. So if it's less than that and needs a lot of work, you're going to pretty much a hard money lender for commercial real estate, which is a debt fund. So just like there's investment funds, like there's hard money lenders for multifamily, but you got to have a hell of a track record and you got to be buying at a hell of a discount. Paul, all right, this is the last question. You talk about cashing out investors, yet talk about equity in perpetuity. How does that work? When I say I cash them out, I pay them that back their investment. So if they invest $1 million with me, I pay them back their $1 million, and then they have their all their money back, but they maintain equity in perpetuity. That's what I mean by cashing them out or paying them back. So hopefully that is helpful for you guys. I got to roll. I got to send a wire, and then I'm going to get a massage, actually. So hopefully that's helpful. And yeah, I appreciate you guys. And if you got any questions, reach out to Nick on deals, reach out to Fatty on money, reach out to Commercial Empire and call the number 440-754-0944. 754-0944 and reach out to the team. We'd love to see you guys and meet with you guys also. I try to meet as many people as I can at these events. I usually get to say hello, take some pictures, and have a little side conversation with most of the people that attend. So please come out to Commercial Empire. I'd love to see you guys and do some deals with you. I mean, that's really the main key here. I want to help you guys build some wealth and get some sunshine, right? It's plenty of it for all of us. So I appreciate it. And I'm going to log off now and turn it back over to the team.
All right. Thanks, Tim.